A peaceful hospital visit becomes the spark that blows up an entire empire when a millionaire tears up divorce papers in front of his pregnant wife and her dying father. He thinks he has full control. He thinks she is too fragile to fight back, but he has no idea that the old man's final breath carries evidence that will burn his world to the ground. What happens next is a storm of fear, power, and justice as a mother fights for her unborn child while the FBI closes in. And trust me, you will not believe what happens by the time the cuffs snap shut. Let us know what time you are listening and where you are tuning in from. Drop a comment below. We would love to hear from you. The air inside the ICU of St. Augustine Medical Center felt unnaturally cold, as if the machines themselves were breathing frost into the room. Olivia Walker paused at the doorway, with one hand braced against the frame and the other resting on the curve of her belly. At 7 months pregnant, every step felt heavier than the one before it. Her sneakers squeaked softly on the polished floor as she walked toward the hospital bed where her father lay. Henry Walker looked impossibly small under the white sheets. His once broad shoulders had collapsed into the mattress. His breathing came through the oxygen mask in shallow pulls that made the heart monitor blink erratically. Olivia's throat tightened. She wanted to be strong for him, but her fear pressed at her like a weight from inside and outside at the same time. She placed a trembling hand on her stomach, feeling her daughter's faint movement underneath. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, even though nothing about this moment felt okay. Her other hand clutched a manila folder. Inside it was the divorce petition she had spent weeks rewriting, erasing, rewriting again, and hiding from the man who was about to walk through the same door she had entered. When the door slid open behind her, she felt her entire body stiffen. The familiar scent of expensive cologne reached her before his voice did. Grant Holloway stepped inside the room with the same confidence he used when entering a boardroom full of clients. His navy suit fit perfectly. His hair was styled with precision. His face carried that smooth, polished calm that strangers often mistook for charm. Olivia had lived long enough with him to know it was simply another mask. He did not acknowledge the machines or the gravity of the room. He only looked at the folder in her hand. His eyes narrowed with quiet calculation. "What do you have there?" he asked, his tone deceptively soft. Olivia swallowed. Her pulse throbbed at the base of her neck. "Grant, I need you to listen. We should talk about this somewhere else." Grant stepped toward her. "No, we will talk here. I want your father to hear how his daughter treats her husband." Olivia instinctively stepped back, but her heel hit the side of Henry's bed. Her father's eyes fluttered open. Even through the haze of medication, even through the mask that covered his mouth and nose, fear flashed in his eyes. He looked from Olivia to Grant, and then back again. His hand twitched slightly on the blanket. Olivia felt time slow around her. She looked down at the divorce papers inside the folder. She had waited too long. She knew that. She had allowed fear to shape every decision she made for years. But today was supposed to be the first step toward freedom for herself and for her unborn child. She lifted the folder in front of her. "Grant, please just read it. That's all I am asking." Grant's expression froze. Then he moved with sudden speed. He snatched the folder out of her hand so forcefully that she lost her balance. Her free hand flew to her belly as she gasped. Henry's heart monitor beeped erratically. Nurse Dorothy, who had been standing at her chart station in the hallway, poked her head into the room with alarm in her eyes. Grant ignored both women completely. He opened the folder. His jaw tightened when he saw the heading, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." He lifted his eyes to Olivia with a coldness that made her knees weaken. "You think you can leave me?" he said slowly. "While you are carrying my child." Olivia felt her breath catch. "I am leaving because of how you treat me, because of how you make me feel. Dad cannot take stress right now. Please, not here." Grant's smile was chilling. This is exactly where the conversation should happen. He held the divorce papers up between two fingers as if they were trash. Then he tore the first page in half. The sound ripped through the ICU with a violence that felt personal. Henry jerked weakly on the bed. Olivia's heart dropped into her stomach. Grant tore the second page. Then the third. He ripped every sheet into pieces. Bits of paper drifted to the floor around Olivia's shoes. One piece landed beside Henry's bed rail. Another floated downward near the foot of the bed like it was falling in slow motion. Olivia's breath trembled. Her hands shook around her belly. Dorothy stepped closer but did not intervene yet. watching the situation with guarded concern. Grant leaned in close to Olivia. His voice was low but venomous. "When you are pregnant with my child, you do not get to leave. You do not get to make decisions without me. You belong with me. You stay where I say you stay." Olivia's lips parted in shock and fear. Her daughter kicked inside her as if reacting to the tension. Olivia placed both hands on her stomach and backed away until her hips pressed against the side of the bed. Henry's heart monitor beeped sharply. His chest rose and fell in uneven, struggling movements. Dorothy hurried to his side and checked the oxygen levels. She glanced at Grant with visible disapproval. "Sir," she said firmly, "you need to lower your voice. This patient cannot handle elevated stress." Grant straightened his suit jacket. "I am perfectly calm," Dorothy replied without looking at him. "Your version of calm is not what his heart needs." Olivia moved closer to the bed and took Henry's hand. "Dad," she whispered, "I am so sorry. I should have done this sooner. I did not want you to see this. I did not want the baby to feel this." Henry's eyelids fluttered again. His fingers twitched in hers with faint urgency. Olivia leaned down, trying to hear the faint sounds he made behind the oxygen mask, but his words dissolved into the mechanical hum of the machines. Grant walked toward the door as if the scene bored him. Just before he stepped out, he turned his head slightly and said, "We are not done. I will be waiting." "Yuan." The automatic doors slid shut behind him, leaving the room shockingly silent. The only sounds were the rhythmic pulse of the heart monitor and Olivia's uneven breathing. She lowered herself onto the edge of the bed with difficulty. Her knees felt weak. Her hands trembled on Henry's arm. She felt the baby shift again deep inside her, and for a moment she feared the stress might harm her child. Dorothy placed a gentle hand on Olivia's shoulder. "Talk to him," she said softly. "He can still hear you." Olivia leaned closer. "I am here, Dad. I am okay. I am scared, but I am here." Henry's fingers closed around hers with the fragile strength of a man who had spent his last days fighting to protect her. Olivia pressed her forehead gently against his hand. Her tears soaked into the blanket beside him as she held on to him, to her baby, and to the last bit of strength she had left. In that moment, she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She could not let her daughter be born into the same fear she had lived in for years. This was the moment she had to change everything, and it had only just begun. The room felt heavier after Grant left, as if the silence he abandoned had expanded into every corner. The heart monitor beside Henry's bed beeped with an unsteady rhythm that made Olivia's own pulse trip over itself. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand and tried to breathe evenly. Her belly tightened beneath her palms with a small, anxious flutter from the baby inside. She whispered a soft reassurance, though her voice shook. Nurse Dorothy finished adjusting the oxygen settings and stepped back to check the monitor. Her expression softened. "He is still aware," she said quietly. "He is fighting to stay with you as long as he can." Olivia nodded. She swallowed the lump rising in her throat and leaned closer to her father. His eyelids trembled, as if trying to lift themselves through sheer will. She squeezed his hand slowly, gently, the way she used to when she was a child and afraid of thunderstorms. "I am here, Dad," she whispered. "I am right here. I am not going anywhere." Henry's chest rose and fell with frail effort. The oxygen mask fogged slightly each time he exhaled. His hand twitched beneath Olivia's fingers. She tried to hold on to the moment, to carve it into memory, because somewhere deep in her heart she already knew this would be the last time she would speak to him. Dorothy took a step back and lowered her voice. "Talk to him. He wants to hear you." Olivia brushed her thumb over the thin skin of her father's knuckles. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion she could barely contain. "I know you saw everything. I am sorry you had to witness it. I am sorry I did not leave him sooner. I was scared. I am still scared. But I am trying to be brave. For you, for the baby." Henry's eyelids fluttered again, stronger this time. The corners of his mouth shifted behind the mask, trying to form a response that life no longer gave him strength to voice. His fingers pressed weakly into Olivia's hand. Then they moved again. 2 gentle squeezes, slow, soft, full of meaning. Olivia froze. Those 2 small squeezes traveled through her like a spark of electricity. Her breath hitched. "I know, Dad," she murmured. "I know you love me." Her vision blurred as tears welled up again. She blinked them away because she needed to see him clearly. She needed to see the man who had spent his entire life protecting her, and now, at the end of his own life, he was still trying to protect her. The monitor beeped louder. The oxygen machine made a soft mechanical sound as Henry struggled for air. His hand lifted slightly off the bedsheet, trembling as it tried to reach toward her. Olivia quickly leaned closer and held it with both hands. "Dad," she whispered, "I am here. Tell me what you need." Henry's eyes opened a fraction. They were unfocused but filled with urgency. Olivia leaned in until she could hear the faint rumbling of his breath beneath the oxygen mask. His lips moved slowly. She listened so intently that the rest of the world disappeared. The machines faded into the background. The room narrowed to just this single moment. With a final push of strength, Henry forced a broken whisper through the mask. "Con. Team. Hope Gore. Garage Cour." His breath hitched sharply. He paused, then finished with 3 faint words. "Bo. De Lai. Con." Olivia felt the words strike her chest, with the weight of a revelation she did not yet understand. "The box," she whispered. "Dad, what is in it? What do you mean?" But Henry's strength was nearly gone. The hand wrapped in hers began to loosen. His eyes flickered with exhaustion, yet a spark of determination flashed in them once more. He squeezed her hand again. 1 weak squeeze, a pause, then another. "I love you." Olivia bowed her head, letting her tears fall freely now. They soaked into the blanket near his arm. "I love you too," she whispered fiercely. "I love you so much. I promise I will find it. I promise I will listen to you. I will take care of the baby. I will survive this. I will not let him hurt us again." The heart monitor beeped in shorter, more frantic intervals. Dorothy rushed forward with quiet urgency. She checked the monitor and adjusted the mask. Her expression shifted into a mixture of professionalism and sorrow. "Olivia," she said softly, "you should keep talking. He can still hear you." Olivia held Henry's hand tighter. She brought it to her cheek and closed her eyes. "Dad, you do not have to fight anymore," she whispered. "I will be okay. You have carried me long enough. You can rest now. I promise I will find the box. I promise I will follow what you wanted for me." "No." Henry's breathing became shallow. His eyes moved toward her one last time. The entire room seemed to hold its breath, waiting with her, as if time itself recognized the weight of a goodbye between a father and daughter. Henry exhaled a rattling breath, and his fingers relaxed completely in Olivia's hand. The heart monitor flattened into a steady line. A soft tone filled the room. Olivia's entire world collapsed inward. She leaned over the bed, clutching Henry's hand against her face, her sobs thick and broken. She felt her belly tighten again, and through her grief she remembered she was not alone in her body. She placed one hand protectively over her stomach and whispered, "We are okay. We are okay. I am here. I am here." Dorothy gently lowered her clipboard and placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder. She waited in respectful silence before speaking. "He loved you more than anything. He talked to me about you often. He worried. He prepared for this. He wanted to make sure you had what you needed." Olivia lifted her head slowly. Her face was streaked with tears. "The box," she whispered. "He said garage. He left something for me." Dorothy nodded. "He mentioned it once. He said if something happened to him, you would know what it meant. He trusted you would follow his instructions." Olivia brushed her hand across her stomach and took a long, shaking breath. She looked at her father's still form. She rested her forehead gently against his arm one more time. "I will find it, Dad. I will do exactly what you asked." She straightened, wiping her tears again. Her legs wobbled slightly from the combination of grief and pregnancy, but determination held her upright. There was a new clarity inside her now. She would not stay silent anymore. She would not let fear rule her life. She would follow the last words her father gave her. She placed her hand on her belly again, feeling the gentle movement of her child. It grounded her. It reminded her that she had someone to protect now, someone who needed her to be strong even when she was breaking. Olivia kissed her father's forehead. "Goodbye, Dad," she whispered. "I will not fail you." She turned toward the door, holding her stomach with one hand and wiping her tears with the other. She walked out of the ICU carrying more than grief. She carried a mission, and she would begin it the moment she gathered the strength to step into her father's garage. The box was waiting. The drive to Gainesville felt longer than usual, even though Olivia had taken this route countless times throughout her life. The late afternoon sun hung low over the highway, casting long shadows across the road. The hum of the SUV helped steady her breathing, but her hands still trembled on the steering wheel. Every few minutes, she shifted her palm to rest on her belly. Her daughter shifted gently beneath her skin, reminding her she was not alone. The feeling anchored her in the most fragile of ways. As she passed familiar exits and old billboards, memories of coming here as a child drifted through her mind. Summers with her father, barbecue afternoons, him teaching her how to change a tire in that same garage she was now driving toward. She felt a deep ache at the thought that the house still stood exactly as he left it, while he himself was gone. She blinked away the tears before they blurred her view of the road. When she finally turned into the narrow driveway of Henry's old home, she sat in the parked SUV for a few minutes before moving. The house looked tired. The paint on the porch railings had chipped. The lawn was slightly overgrown from weeks without care. The quiet around the property felt heavy rather than peaceful. Olivia placed both hands on her belly, breathed in deeply, and whispered, "We can do this. We have to." She stepped out of the car and unlocked the front door. The familiar creak greeted her. Inside, the house smelled faintly like cedar and the lemon wood polish Henry always used. It was comforting and painful at the same time. She did not linger. Her feet led her down the narrow hallway and into the kitchen, then through the side door that opened to the garage. The moment she stepped inside, dust and cold air hit her face. The garage was exactly how her father had left it. Tools hung neatly on the old pegboard wall. A fishing rod leaned in its usual corner. Boxes that had not been touched in years were stacked along the back. Olivia turned on the overhead light. It flickered before finally staying on, bathing the space in a tired yellow glow. She pressed a hand into the small of her back, easing the pull caused by the extra weight of pregnancy. Then she walked deeper into the garage. Her footsteps stirred soft clouds of dust from the concrete floor. She looked around slowly, trying to imagine what her father had meant. A box. That was all the clue she had. A box in a garage that held a lifetime of memories and clutter. Her eyes moved from shelf to shelf. Old paint cans, toolboxes, a crate filled with her childhood school projects. Then she noticed it, a stack of Christmas decorations. Cardboard boxes taped and retaped over the years. The top box sagged slightly, revealing the faint outline of tinsel peeking through. Something in her chest tightened. Henry rarely touched those decorations anymore. They reminded him too much of her mother. Olivia walked toward the stack. She crouched carefully, supporting herself with one hand on a nearby workbench. Her father's handwriting was on the side of one of the boxes. That made her chest ache again. She moved the first box aside, then another. Beneath them, tucked deep toward the back wall, she saw something that did not belong. A wooden box. Its smooth surface peeked out from under a layer of dust. Olivia reached for it. The weight surprised her. She pulled it onto her lap as carefully as she could while balancing her pregnant belly. The box was made of walnut. It had a small silver lock clasped shut, but no key in sight. The wood felt warm in her hands even through the dust. Her father had chosen this box intentionally. She could feel it. Her heart beat faster. She carried the box to the workbench and sat on the old metal stool Henry used for years. She took a long breath before opening the top, half afraid of what she would find. The clasp clicked open without a key. The lid lifted smoothly. Inside, everything was organized with Henry's meticulous care. On top lay a USB drive. Silver, plain, clean. She picked it up, feeling the weight of its importance without even knowing what was on it. Beneath it was a notebook. The cover was worn and the edges were frayed. She recognized her father's handwriting instantly, his looping letters, his careful spacing. She pressed her fingertips against the cover, almost afraid to open it. She turned the first page. Her father had dated every entry. They began 3 years ago. Notes about Grant's company. Notes about sudden spikes in financial activity. Names of people Olivia did not recognize. Numbers traced from accounts overseas. Transactions that made no logical sense for a legitimate business. Her throat tightened as she read. Henry had investigated Grant quietly, consistently, patiently, for 3 entire years. She flipped further into the notebook. The entries became more detailed, more alarming. Words like suspicious, offshore transfers, unreported income, potential fraud. She felt dizzy as she processed it. She took a deep breath and reminded herself to sit back so her daughter would not feel the tension running through her body. Beneath the notebook were printed bank statements, dozens of them, transactions marked with red pen, transfers to companies with strange names, withdrawals to accounts she had never heard of, financial patterns she did not understand but instinctively knew were dangerous. She kept going. More documents, more pages, more shadows. Each sheet she lifted deepened the sick feeling in her stomach. Not just fear for herself, fear for the child she carried. The child Grant claimed as leverage. The child Henry had tried to protect. Then she found the note, a single sheet of paper folded neatly at the bottom of the box. She opened it. Her father's handwriting filled the page. The words felt heavy even before she read them completely. Grant Holloway is hiding something very dangerous. If you are reading this, it means I no longer have the strength to help you directly. You will need this box to survive. Protect yourself and your baby. Do not trust him. Olivia's vision blurred again. She pressed the paper to her chest. She felt her baby turn inside her. She felt the realization settle over her, like a blanket made of truth and grief. Her father had known. He had known Grant was dangerous. He had known Olivia would need protection. He had known she might face this moment alone. She whispered to the empty garage, "Dad, I understand. I see it now. I will do what you wanted. I will protect her. I promise." The garage felt colder now, but her resolve felt stronger. She looked at the USB, the notebook, the stack of documents. For the first time since Grant tore the divorce papers apart, Olivia felt something stronger than fear. She felt the beginning of a plan, and she felt her father guiding her still. Olivia sat in her father's garage for a long moment, surrounded by the box, the documents, and the ache of everything she had just learned. Dust floated in slow spirals through the dim yellow light, settling on the edges of the workbench like traces of the past refusing to leave. She pressed her hands against her belly and exhaled slowly. Her daughter shifted beneath her skin, sensing the tension nestled deep in her mother's chest. The wooden box sat open in front of her. At the top of the stack of papers lay the silver USB. Beneath it was the notebook where her father had poured 3 years of fear, suspicion, and determination. She tried to imagine him sitting alone in this garage, recording every detail he found, knowing the weight it would carry someday. A fresh wave of grief tightened her throat. She took the small business card resting beneath the notebook. The edges were crisp, untouched by time. The name printed in black stood out sharply. Agent Lucas Ramirez, FBI Financial Crimes. She stared at the card for a few seconds. The house felt too quiet, the garage too heavy. She rose from the stool slowly, one hand on her back to counterbalance her belly, and the other gripping the card like it was her last lifeline. Inside the house, she sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she and Henry had eaten breakfast for 2 decades. The same place where he had read his newspaper every morning. She placed the card on the table and took out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the keypad as she hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, she dialed the number. The call rang once, then twice, a third time. On the 4th ring, a calm male voice answered. "Agent Ramirez speaking." Olivia's mouth felt dry. "My name is Olivia Walker," she said softly. "I believe you knew my father." Henry Walker. There was a pause, not long enough to be confusion, just long enough to be recognition. "Yes," Ramirez said. "I knew him. Are you calling because of the information he left behind?" Her heartbeat stumbled. "I found a box, in his garage. He told me to find it before he died. I think he wanted me to bring it to you." Ramirez's voice changed subtly. It was not surprise. It was something heavier. "Where are you right now, Miss Walker?" "His house in Gainesville," she replied. "He passed away this morning." Another pause, softer this time. "I am very sorry for your loss. Your father was a good man. He took risks to protect you." Olivia's breath shook. "He said I needed the box to survive." She looked down at her belly. "I think he meant me and the baby." "How far along are you?" Ramirez asked gently. 7 months. "I see," he said. "I need you to come to our field office. We will review everything together. Do not tell anyone where you are going, especially not your husband." Olivia closed her eyes. I will come now. Das ist wahr. The drive to the Gainesville FBI field office was shorter than she expected, but the weight of the wooden box on the seat beside her made every mile feel twice as long. When she arrived, the security officers directed her through 2 checkpoints before letting her into a small waiting area. A moment later, a man in a dark suit stepped into the room. Miss Walker, he said, extending his hand. I am Agent Lucas Ramirez. He was in his early 40s, with steady eyes that carried both caution and compassion. Olivia shook his hand. Her grip was weak, but Ramirez seemed to understand the exhaustion and fear woven into her movements. He gestured for her to follow him into a private conference room. Once inside, he closed the door, pulled out a chair for her, and gently lowered the blinds. Olivia placed the wooden box on the table. Ramirez sat across from her. Before we go through this, he said, I need to tell you something. Olivia nodded, bracing herself. Your father came to us nearly 3 years ago, Ramirez said. He noticed irregular activity in your husband's business, unusual transfers, off-the-record consultations with individuals connected to organized crime in Miami, offshore accounts, shell companies. Your father suspected money laundering at minimum. Olivia felt her stomach twist. He told you all this. He did, Ramirez replied. And he was right to worry. Grant Holloway is involved in something very dangerous. But your father's health declined quickly. He could not continue helping us the way he wanted. He was determined to gather enough evidence so that when the time came, you would be protected. Olivia's eyes filled again. He never told me. Ramirez shook his head. He did not want to scare you, especially after he learned you were pregnant. He told us he wanted his grandchild to grow up without fear. Olivia's breath caught. She placed her hand gently on her stomach. He knew I would need this box. Yes, Ramirez said. He said if anything happened to him, you would understand its importance. Ramirez opened the box and carefully examined the documents. He unfolded the notebook and scanned several pages. His expression hardened as he read the handwritten entries. This is detailed, he said. Very detailed. He documented transfers, meetings, suspicious partnerships. This is more than enough to justify a deeper investigation. He opened the USB next. We will review this in our secure lab, he said. Your father may have given us what we need to take legal action. Then he met her eyes again. Miss Walker, your husband is not just financially corrupt. He is associated with individuals who do not hesitate to harm people who get in their way. Olivia felt her breath leave her chest. He threatened me today, she whispered. He said because I am carrying his child, I cannot leave. Ramirez's jaw tightened. Then your father acted at the right time. He knew Grant could hurt you or the baby. That is why he came to us. Olivia lowered her head. Tears dripped onto her hands. I thought I had more time with him, she whispered. I thought he would see me safe. He helped you in every way he could, Ramirez said softly. Even when his body was failing, he gathered evidence. He sent information. He told us he wanted you to have a life free of Grant's control. He chose to protect you with his last strength. Olivia covered her face with one hand. The other clutched her belly, feeling the baby shift inside her. I cannot believe he did all of this alone. He believed you would follow his instructions, Ramirez said. He believed you would find this box. She lifted her head. What do I do now? You let us handle the investigation, Ramirez said. But you must also protect yourself. Do not return home. Do not contact Grant. We will help you. Your father made sure you would not face this alone. Olivia wiped her eyes. He saved us, she whispered. Even after he was gone. Ramirez nodded. Yes, he did. For the first time since Henry's death, Olivia felt something shift inside her. It was not relief. Not yet. But it was direction. Her father had left her a path, and she would follow it. For her daughter, for herself, and for the man who had spent his final days preparing to save them both. Olivia had barely left the FBI field office before the first phone call came through. Her phone vibrated loudly against the center console of her SUV. She glanced at the screen and felt her stomach tighten. Grant's name flashed in bold letters. She let it ring. Moments later it rang again. And again. The third time, the vibration rattled so violently that she reached out and flipped the phone over, unable to bear the sight of his name. She rested her hand on her belly. It is okay, she whispered to her daughter. "We are okay. We just need to keep moving." When she reached the traffic light at the main intersection, the phone rang again. She counted the calls in her head. 5, 7, 9, each one chipped at her nerves. By the time she turned into Henry's neighborhood, the 10th call came in. The screen lit up the darkening interior of the SUV as dusk settled across the houses and trees. Olivia gripped the steering wheel tightly and took a slow, steady breath. She did not pick up. She knew that if she answered, he would try to take control again. He always did. But the calls did not stop. When she pulled into Henry's driveway, the phone began to buzz with incoming voicemails, then text messages, rapid, aggressive. The notifications stacked on the screen faster than she could read them. She opened one. "Where are you?" Then another. "You are 7 months pregnant with my child. You do not disappear on me." Then another. "I will find you." Her heart pounded as she pressed a hand to her stomach. The baby shifted inside her, as if reacting to her fear. She whispered again, almost chanting, "We are okay. We are okay." She reached for the wooden box on the passenger seat and held it against her chest for a moment. It grounded her. Inside the house, she walked toward the living room window and peeked through the blinds. The street was empty. No car, no sign of him. She exhaled shakily and leaned her forehead against the cool glass. Another vibration, another text. "You have 1 hour to call me." Her throat tightened. She swallowed the rising panic and stepped back from the window. She knew she had to gather the rest of Henry's things and return to the FBI before it got dark. She walked toward the garage again to retrieve the documents she had not yet transferred to the box. That was the moment she heard it. The deep growl of an engine turning into the driveway. Her blood ran cold. She turned off the lights in the hallway and moved slowly toward the front window. When she lifted the edge of the curtain, she felt her knees weaken. Grant's black Cadillac Escalade sat in the driveway, the headlights cutting sharp white lines across the lawn. The engine rumbled with the same confidence and force as the man who stepped out of the driver's seat. Grant slammed the door behind him. His suit jacket was still perfectly straight. His hair was still perfectly styled. But something in his posture was different. There was no trace of the practiced charm he usually carried. His movements were stiff with anger. Olivia backed away from the window and pressed her hand over her mouth to quiet her breathing. Her heartbeat thudded hard against her ribs. She checked the back door, locked. She checked the front door, also locked. But she knew Grant. Locks did not stop him when he wanted something. She heard the heavy footsteps on the front porch, then the pounding on the door. "Olivia," Grant called out, his voice deep and threatening. "Open the door." She held her belly and tried to stay quiet. The pounding grew louder. "Do not play games with me. You think I do not know where you went. You think I do not know you found something." Her breath caught. He could not know. He could not possibly know, but the certainty in his voice made fear crawl down her spine. "Open the door," he repeated. When she did not answer, she heard the creak of the porch boards as he moved. A moment later, the sound of boots crunching over gravel reached her ears from the side of the house. He was heading toward the garage. Olivia's breath trembled as she rushed down the hallway and reached the garage door at the exact moment Grant shoved it open. The force of the door hitting the wall made her jump. He stood in the doorway, his chest rising and falling with restrained fury. The overhead light illuminated his face enough for her to see the coldness in his eyes. "You left without telling me," he said, "and you think I would not come find you." She took a step back, her hand instinctively covering her stomach. "Grant, please do not do this. I need space. I need to grieve. My father just died. I doodplease.com. On debater, instinctively covering her stomach. Grant ignored the mention of Henry completely. He stepped closer. "You are carrying my child. You do not get to run away." Olivia moved back until her hip bumped into the workbench. She winced. The baby shifted anxiously inside her. Grant reached for her wrist. His fingers clamped around her skin with a grip so hard she gasped in pain. "Do you understand what you are doing?" he hissed. "You are putting our child in danger." "You are hurting me," Olivia cried out, her voice breaking. "Let go! Grant, let go!" "Not until you come home with me," he growled. "You belong with me, you and the baby." Another spike of pain shot up her arm as he tightened his grip. She stumbled forward, nearly losing her balance. Her free hand shot to her belly, her face paled with horror. "Grant, Stop, please, the baby." For the first time, Grant hesitated. Not out of compassion, but out of calculation. He loosened his hold only slightly. "Then stop fighting me and come home." "No," she whispered, tears forming. "I am not going with you." He leaned closer. "You have no choice. You." Olivia drew in a shaking breath and screamed as loudly as she could, "Help! Someone help me!" Her voice echoed out of the garage and into the quiet neighborhood. A porch light snapped on across the street. A neighbor opened their door halfway. Another stepped onto their front lawn. Grant froze. He looked over his shoulder, calculating the number of witnesses. Olivia used that moment to yank her arm free and stumble back toward the house. She pressed both hands to her belly as relief and adrenaline surged through her. "Olivia!" Grant snapped, his voice low and threatening. "This is not over." She did not look back. She ran into the house, locked the door behind her, and grabbed her phone with shaking hands. Her chest rose and fell in frantic breaths as she dialed the only number she trusted. Agent Ramirez answered on the first ring. "It is me," she said, her voice trembling. "He found me. He grabbed me. I need help." "Mo?" "Where are you now?" Ramirez asked urgently. "At my father's house. Please hurry. Stay inside. Do not engage. We are coming." Olivia slid down the wall to the floor, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping the phone. Tears slid down her cheeks. The baby moved beneath her palm, as if sensing both the danger and the relief of escape. She whispered softly to her daughter, "I will protect you. I promise." And she waited for the agents who would help her take the next step away from Grant Holloway's control. The conference room at the Gainesville FBI field office felt different the second time Olivia entered it. The first time she had walked through that door, she had carried only fear and confusion. Now she carried something else. She carried bruises on her wrist from Grant's grip. She carried the tremor in her breath that came from nearly falling in the garage while protecting her unborn child. And she carried her father's evidence in a wooden box that had already begun to shift the world around her. Agent Ramirez guided her to a chair and closed the door behind them. He moved with a seriousness that matched the weight of the situation. "We documented everything you told us over the phone," he said. "Grant's behavior is escalating, and because you are 7 months pregnant, this puts you in a high-risk category. We are taking this extremely seriously." Olivia nodded. Her hands rested on her belly. Her daughter kicked softly, as if reminding her of the urgency that surrounded them. "I am scared for her," Olivia whispered. "I am scared Grant will try again." "He will," Ramirez said. "That is why you cannot face this without protection, and why I am bringing in someone who can help you through the legal side." He opened the door and gestured to someone waiting in the hallway. An older woman stepped into the room. She had short silver hair, warm brown eyes, and an air of calm authority that immediately softened the tension in the room. She wore a navy blazer over a crisp blouse and carried a leather briefcase that had clearly seen years of heavy use. "Miss Walker," she said with a gentle smile, "I am Martha Dillon. It is good to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Olivia stood up slowly and shook her hand. "Thank you for coming." Martha's eyes drifted briefly to Olivia's belly. Her expression softened further. "You must be exhausted," she said, "and frightened, but you are not alone anymore. We are going to handle this together." The words made Olivia's throat tighten with emotion. She sat down again, feeling the tears that threatened to rise. Martha pulled a chair beside her, not opposite her. The gesture felt intentional, supportive. It made Olivia feel seen. Agent Ramirez placed the wooden box on the table and opened it so Martha could examine everything inside. Martha reached for the notebook first, flipping through the pages slowly, her expression growing more serious with each line she read. Then she reviewed the bank statements, then the USB, then the handwritten note Henry had left at the bottom. When she closed the box, she placed her hands on top of it and turned toward Olivia. "Kongai," she said softly, her voice filled with a mix of warmth and gravity. "This is not a divorce. This is a rescue mission. A rescue for you and for your baby." Olivia felt her breath catch. No one had said it so plainly before. Not even she had dared to call it that, even though a part of her had known it was true. "I was afraid it was becoming that," she whispered. "It has already become that," Martha said gently. "Your husband has crossed every boundary. He has exerted control. He has used intimidation. And he showed today that he is willing to put physical pressure on you even while you are pregnant. This is not simply unhealthy. It is dangerous. It is legally actionable, and it must be stopped. Agent Ramirez nodded. With the evidence your father gathered and with Olivia's report of today's assault, we have more than enough to take the next steps. Olivia swallowed hard. What do I need to do? Martha opened her briefcase and pulled out several forms. She placed them neatly in front of Olivia. First, we will protect your father's assets. Everything he left behind will be placed in a temporary trust until the court finalizes his estate. Grant will not be able to touch a single dollar. Olivia nodded slowly, absorbing each word. Second, Martha continued, we will file a new divorce petition. This time, the filing will be protected and supported by the FBI. Grant will not be able to tear it up. He will not even be able to approach you with threats or coercion. Olivia felt a tremor of relief pass through her. Thank you, she whispered. Third, Martha said, her tone steady and firm, we will immediately request an emergency protective order. This will restrict Grant from contacting you or coming within 100 feet of you. Because you are pregnant, the court is more likely to grant it quickly. Olivia let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like days. The idea of space, real space, between her and Grant made her eyes burn with emotion. And finally, Martha said, we are arranging a safe place for you to stay. The FBI has a network of secure housing for women in situations like yours. The one we are recommending is specifically designed for pregnant women who are escaping dangerous partners. It is confidential, secure, and staffed with medical professionals. You will be safe there while we build this case. Yeah. Olivia pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed by the sudden realization that she was no longer navigating this alone. I did not think anyone would help me, she whispered. For so long it felt like no one could. Martha placed a warm hand on her shoulder. You have more people on your side than you realize. Your father spent 3 years preparing for this moment. He trusted you would reach out, and now it is our turn to protect you, just as he wanted. Wait, tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks. She did not wipe them away. She let them fall because they carried the weight of years of fear and isolation. And because now, for the first time, she felt hope pressing through the cracks. Agent Ramirez sat across from them. His voice was steady but compassionate. You are doing the right thing for your baby, and your father did the right thing by leaving you that box. That box is the reason we can move fast. Olivia nodded. I want to keep my child safe, she said, her voice shaking. I want a life where she does not have to grow up in fear. I do not want Grant anywhere near her. And he will not be, Martha said firmly. Not if I have anything to say about it. The certainty in her voice made Olivia breathe deeper. She leaned back in her chair, exhausted but steadier. Her daughter kicked again, as if echoing her mother's relief. Martha opened a file and handed Olivia a pen. Let us begin the paperwork, she said. Every signature you write today is a step toward your freedom. Olivia looked at the safety forms, the legal documents, the protective order request, and then she looked at the wooden box, the symbol of her father's final act of love. She placed her hand over her belly and whispered softly, "We are going to be okay." And for the first time since everything began, she truly believed it. The morning after Olivia entered the safe house, the FBI field office in Gainesville grew more active than usual. Agent Lucas Ramirez began his day with a stack of urgent reports about Grant Holloway's financial activity. He had expected movement. He had expected panic. But what he saw on his screen made even him pause. Grant had begun draining accounts, moving money between shell corporations, calling offshore numbers, attempting to withdraw funds that had already been frozen by federal order. Every click on the report signaled a new level of desperation. Every ping from the monitoring system sharpened the tension in the room. Ramirez stood and called out to the financial crime team, "Start full tracking on all Holloway accounts. Everything. If he breathes on a transaction, I want it logged." Agents moved quickly, surrounding computer monitors and pulling up the web of companies Grant had built over the years. The digital map lit up with red markers, showing every suspicious move. An agent leaned over her desk. "Sir, he is attempting to wire $75,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands. The request came through a VPN, but the signature patterns match his previous transactions." "Decline it," Ramirez said. "Freeze the sender account." Another agent spoke from across the room. Ramirez, another alert. Grant is trying to liquidate assets from a trust that he was using as a pass-through for shell company transfers. The system blocked it. Ramirez tightened his jaw. Keep watching him. We need every piece of evidence we can get. Grant's financial world was unraveling, and the more it collapsed, the more frantic he became. Meanwhile, Olivia sat inside the safe house kitchen with a warm cup of tea between her hands. The safe house was a quiet, secure facility tucked behind a medical building designed specifically for high-risk women, especially pregnant ones. Every door required a key card. Every window had reinforced glass. The staff moved with gentle efficiency. Nurses checked on her regularly, making sure her blood pressure remained stable. She tried not to look at her phone, but she could not ignore the wave of notifications piling up after last night. Ramirez had asked her not to delete anything because every message mattered. Every word from Grant was evidence. She opened the message thread, her breath stilled at the harshness of the newest texts. "You cannot hide from me. You do not get to keep my child from me. I am giving you 24 hours to come back. If you do not return, you will regret it." Each message made her stomach tighten. A protective instinct surged within her. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "I will keep you safe, no matter what he says, no matter what he does." A nurse approached quietly. "Are you feeling all right, Olivia?" she asked. "I am okay," Olivia replied softly. "Just scared." "Oh, that is normal," the nurse said gently. "You are safe here. Rest if you can." But resting was impossible. Her mind replayed the moment Grant grabbed her wrist in the garage, the pressure, the fear, the way his voice shifted from calm to rage in seconds. The way he used the baby as a tool to trap her. She felt another kick inside her stomach and stroked the top gently. "Your grandfather is watching over us," she whispered. "He would want us to keep going." Back at the FBI office, Ramirez received another alert. "Sir," an agent said, "Grant just attempted to contact one of his offshore partners." The call lasted 27 seconds. The recording flagged certain words. "What words?" Ramirez asked. The agent cleared her throat. "Damage, loose ends, fix it." Ramirez exhaled sharply. "That is enough. Prepare the full report. We are getting close to the threshold for a federal arrest warrant." Grant's unraveling was accelerating. His calls, his transfers, his attempts to move money that no longer existed. Every action revealed fear and volatility. Every partnership he reached out to was already flagged by the FBI. He had begun calling associates who were already under surveillance. He had no idea how deep the net around him stretched. Another alert popped up. "Sir, Grant is driving toward Miami." "Track him," Ramirez said. "He might be trying to flee or contact someone dangerous." As federal agents monitored his movements and communications, Grant's frustration boiled over in a luxury penthouse suite in downtown Miami, where he had retreated to strategize. He paced the length of the living room while staring at his phone. His messages to Olivia remained unanswered. Each silence struck him like a personal attack. He slammed his fist into the marble countertop. His breath shuddered. He could not accept losing control. Not over Olivia. Not over his unborn child. Not over the life he had constructed. He had risen to success by force, intimidation, and manipulation. The idea that someone he considered his was now protected beyond his reach made him furious. He typed another message. 24 hours. He deleted it. Typed again. "You are making a mistake." He deleted it again. Finally, he wrote the words that showed his unraveling fully. "You have 24 hours to come home. If you do not, the consequences will not be pleasant." He hit send. At the safe house, Olivia saw the message appear. Her breath shook. She screenshot it, forwarded it to Ramirez, and then placed her phone face down on the table. A knock sounded on the door of her room. She flinched, then relaxed when she heard the familiar voice. "It is Ramirez. Can I come in?" Olivia opened the door. "Did you get the message?" "I did," he said. "This is the strongest threat yet. It proves he is escalating." Olivia nodded. She felt the weight of the moment pressing against her ribs. "What does it mean?" "It means we are tightening our surveillance," Ramirez said. "We have expanded monitoring of his accounts and communication. We are tracking every mile he drives and every call he makes. The more he panics, the more mistakes he will make." "He is dangerous," Olivia whispered. "I can feel it. He is losing control." He is, Ramirez said. And that is why our net is closing. Every financial move he makes, every person he contacts, every threat he sends. By the time we finish building this case, he will not be able to walk a single step without federal oversight. Olivia placed her hand on her belly. I just want to protect her. And you are? Ramirez said. And your father helped protect you both long before today. She closed her eyes. She felt the truth of those words settle inside her. Her father had taken the first steps. The FBI and Martha continued them. And she, finally, was standing with them. Ramirez spoke again. We are close to getting a federal arrest warrant. Grant is digging his own grave with every threat he sends. You just need to stay safe. That is your only job right now. Olivia nodded. I can do that. Outside the safe house, federal agents took their positions. Surveillance cameras blinked to life. Patrol cars circled the area quietly. Financial firewalls around Grant tightened as algorithms monitored every attempt he made to claw back control. The net was closing, and Grant Holloway did not even realize how close he was to falling into it. The sun had barely risen when the FBI convoy pulled up in front of the 18-story glass tower that housed the headquarters of Holloway International. The morning light reflected across the building's steel framework, turning it into a cold, gleaming monument of Grant Holloway's pride. Within minutes, the peaceful dawn turned into the beginning of one of the most dramatic arrests the city had ever seen. Olivia stood behind the agents, protected on all sides. She wore a loose sweater that stretched gently around her 7-month pregnant belly. Her hair was tied back. Her hands rested protectively over the child inside her. Even though the morning air was cool, sweat gathered on her palms. The safe house nurse who accompanied her rested a steadying hand on her back. You do not have to be this close, the nurse whispered. I need to be, Olivia replied quietly. I need to see it end. Agent Ramirez approached. You can stay as long as you remain behind us. No matter what Grant says, do not step forward. I will not, Olivia said, but she could not deny the tremor in her chest. The last time she faced Grant, she had barely escaped him. Now she was here to watch his empire collapse. Ramirez raised his arm. Move in! Within seconds, agents streamed through the revolving doors of the lobby. The building's security barely had time to react as 12 federal officers stepped in wearing dark blue jackets and bulletproof vests. Their voices echoed through the marble interior. Federal agents, step aside. Hands where we can see them. No one leaves the building. Agents swarmed toward the elevator bay, while others secured the stairwell. Ramirez and 2 senior agents entered the private elevator with the master key card Henry had secretly provided to the FBI months ago. As the doors closed, Olivia watched the numbers climb on the digital display. Floor 12, Floor 15, Floor 18. The top floor, Grant's domain. Inside the boardroom, Grant stood at the head of a long mahogany table, surrounded by shareholders and senior executives. A sleek presentation screen behind him displayed projected profit margins and proposed expansions. He spoke with his usual charisma, his voice resonant and confident. Until the doors to the boardroom suddenly burst open, agents stormed inside. The room froze. Laptops snapped shut. Coffee cups rattled against the table. Grant Holloway, Ramirez announced, you are under arrest for financial fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Grant stared at the agents with disbelief. Then a flush of rage climbed his face. What is this? Do you know who I am? Yes, Ramirez replied calmly, and that is exactly why we are here. Grant's jaw clenched. You cannot storm into my company like this. This is illegal. It is a federal warrant, Ramirez said, signed by a judge. You will comply. When 2 agents stepped forward, Grant recoiled. Do not touch me. Then his eyes darted around the room, searching for support. Someone do something. Call legal. Call security. But no one moved. The shareholders looked horrified. Some whispered to one another. A few took slow steps backward, distancing themselves from him. Even the executives who once worshipped his power stood frozen, unsure whether approaching him would drag them into his downfall. Grant raised his voice. This is a mistake. I demand to see the warrant. You will see everything at the station, Ramirez replied. Turn around. Grant did not move. He stood tall, chest heaving, his face twisted with fury. Turn around, Ramirez repeated. When Grant still refused, the agents gently but firmly grabbed his arm and pivoted him toward the wall. As cold metal cuffs locked around his wrists, the room erupted into gasps. "You cannot do this!" Grant shouted. "You cannot arrest me in front of my board!" But they could, and they did. 2 agents escorted him out of the boardroom. The moment he stepped into the hallway, hundreds of employees peered from behind glass partitions. Phones hovered in trembling hands. Whispered conversations spread through the office floors like wildfire. Is that really him in handcuffs? Oh my God! They arrested Grant. What did he do? Everything his wife warned people about, someone muttered. Downstairs, Olivia stood behind the agents as the employees' chatter began to echo throughout the lobby. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open. Grant emerged between 2 agents. The sight hit Olivia like a shockwave. He looked at her instantly. His hair was disheveled, his face contorted with fury, his tie hung crooked from the struggle upstairs, and the gleaming handcuffs around his wrists reflected the cold office lights. He lunged against the agent's grip. "You!" he snarled. "You think you won. You think this is over." Those nearby froze when they realized who he was shouting at. A pregnant woman. His pregnant wife. "You destroyed everything," Grant shouted. "You ruined my company, my life, and our child's future." Olivia took one calm breath. For the first time in years, she did not flinch. She stepped forward just enough for him to hear her clearly. "I saved my child from you." The words hung in the air like a blow. Grant's face twisted in disbelief. "You ungrateful!" "Enough!" Ramirez cut in. "Move him." Agents pushed Grant toward the waiting convoy. Reporters who had gathered outside pressed against the barriers, shouting questions and snapping photos. Camera flashes illuminated Grant's fall from power in real time. "Mr. Holloway, are you being charged with fraud? Is it true your wife supplied evidence to the FBI? Do you have a statement before you are taken into custody?" Grant glared at Olivia one last time as he was placed into the armored vehicle. The door slammed shut. The sound was final. Olivia's legs trembled suddenly. The nurse stepped closer, ready to catch her if she swayed. But Olivia steadied herself with a deep breath. The baby moved softly inside her, as if responding to the shift in energy. "It is done," Ramirez said gently, standing beside her. "This part is over." Olivia looked at the building that had once symbolized Grant's power. Now it felt hollow, empty, a monument built on fear and lies. She placed a hand on her belly. "We are safe," she whispered. And although the fight was not completely finished, one thing was clear. The kingdom Grant Holloway built had fallen, and Olivia, 7 months pregnant and stronger than she had ever realized, had survived long enough to witness the collapse with her own eyes. The moment the armored transport doors slammed shut on Grant Holloway, the city outside continued with its usual rhythm, but the world inside the federal detention center shifted sharply. Grant had never been inside a holding facility in his life. He had never seen the dull concrete walls, the cold metal benches, or the narrow barred windows that let in almost no sunlight. Now he was shoved through processing like any other criminal. The officers spoke to him with routine indifference. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air smelled like disinfectant and stale sweat. Grant tried to keep his composure during intake, answering questions through clenched teeth, trying to convince himself this was temporary. A misunderstanding, a mistake, something his lawyers would undo by morning. But every officer who escorted him looked at him with recognition. News traveled fast, and already whispers echoed through the detention center. "That's the guy who hurt a pregnant woman. Law. That's the one who threatened her. I heard he tried to drag her out of a garage." By the time Grant was placed in a temporary holding cell, the rumors were no longer rumors. They had become truth inside the walls, shaped and sharpened by the inmates who had lived long enough to know what kind of men they despised most. When officers escorted Grant down the hallway for initial processing, a few inmates leaned against the bars, watching him like a wounded animal entering the wrong forest. One man spat on the floor. "Real tough guy, huh?" Another shook his head. "Pregnant woman. Shameful." Grant kept his eyes forward, jaw locked. His heart pounded faster with every step. During the next escorted movement, the tension finally broke. As he walked past a narrow corridor, 2 inmates moved faster than the officers expected. One slammed a forearm into Grant's back, knocking him off balance. Another grabbed his shirt and punched him hard in the ribs. A third reached through the bars and slapped him across the face so violently that Grant heard ringing in his ears. "Try hitting someone who can hit back," the man growled. Officers rushed in, pulling the attackers away, shouting orders. Grant fell to the floor, breath knocked out of him, pain radiating through his side. His vision blurred. He tried to gather himself, but fear clawed at him as he realized he was vulnerable. For the first time in his life, he was not the man with power. He was the man everyone despised. The officers pulled him to his feet and marched him toward a separate wing. "We are putting you in protective isolation until trial," one said firmly. "For your safety." Grant wanted to argue, but no words came out. His pride was bruised as deeply as his injuries. He had built an empire on control, and now he could not even protect himself within a hallway of locked cells. The days leading to the trial were long and suffocating. He paced the small room. He demanded his lawyer. He shouted for updates, but none of it changed the reality. Each attempt to protest was met with calm, unmoved procedure. The federal machine was larger and stronger than anything he had ever controlled. When the day of the trial finally arrived, Grant was escorted into the courtroom from the detainee's entrance. He wore a plain jumpsuit instead of a tailored suit. His hands were cuffed. His face still bore faint bruises, and for the first time, fear, not anger, lingered behind his eyes. The courtroom was full. Federal prosecutors, press, observers, Olivia. She sat in the first row beside Martha Dillon. 7 months pregnant, her belly was round beneath her modest dress. FBI agents sat behind her, forming a quiet wall of protection. Olivia's hands rested on her stomach, and she breathed carefully, trying to remain calm as she felt the baby move inside her. Grant froze when he saw her. His lips tightened, and for a moment he seemed to forget where he was. He stared at her with a mixture of disbelief and fury, unable to accept that the woman he once controlled now sat beyond his reach. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The trial began. The prosecution wasted no time. They presented the USB drive Henry had hidden. They showed the financial records. They displayed charts mapping out the shell companies, offshore movements, and fraudulent transfers Grant had coordinated. Each revelation struck the courtroom like a blow. Grant's jaw tightened more with every slide. Then came Henry's notebook, his handwriting, his dates, his careful documentation spanning 3 years. Olivia gripped Martha's hand as the pages were read aloud. Her father's voice echoed in every line. His final act of love stood tall in that courtroom. Grant tried to force a smile at the jury, but no one returned it. Then the prosecutor approached the evidence table and held up printed pages. "These are the text messages sent by the defendant to his wife. I will read them exactly as written." Everyone fell silent. "If you do not come back in 24 hours, you will regret it." A murmur swept through the courtroom. A few people gasped softly. Others shook their heads. The atmosphere shifted instantly. This was not the message of a desperate husband. It was the threat of a man who believed he owned another human being. The prosecutor continued, but the room's attention had already hardened against Grant. Grant stood abruptly. His chair screeched across the floor. "She betrayed me," he shouted. "Everything I built, she destroyed. She turned on me. She and her dead father." "Sit down," the judge ordered. Grant kept shouting. "She was mine. She and the child. She was supposed to—" "Sit down," the judge repeated sharply. 2 marshals grabbed Grant by the arms. He stumbled, his face red with rage, veins bulging in his neck. Olivia closed her eyes as the sound of his voice filled the courtroom. The baby kicked, reacting to the tension, and she placed a hand on her belly to soothe the tiny heartbeat inside her. The judge waited until Grant was seated and silent before delivering the verdict. "Grant Holloway, this court finds you guilty on all counts." A breathless quiet filled the room. "For your crimes, including financial fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and threatening a pregnant woman, you are sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. No parole, no reduction." The gavel struck. Grant's mouth dropped open, his knees buckled. The marshals grabbed him before he fell completely. He stared at Olivia with disbelief, as if expecting her to rescue him. But she looked back with calm, steady eyes. She had already saved the only person who mattered. As Grant was led out of the courtroom, Olivia exhaled a long, trembling breath. her vision blurred with tears. She whispered into the quiet space between her hands and her belly. "We are free now." The baby shifted gently, as if answering her. And for the first time in almost a year, Olivia felt her chest lighten. Not completely, but enough to breathe. Enough to believe. Enough to know the future belonged to her and her child, not to the man in handcuffs disappearing through the courtroom doors. The morning light in Gainesville had a softer quality than anywhere else Olivia had lived. It slipped through the tall oak trees behind Henry's house and poured across the wooden porch like something gentle and forgiving. Weeks had passed since the verdict, yet every sunrise still felt like a reminder that the world had changed. Not because Grant was gone, but because she was finally free. Olivia stepped onto the front porch, one hand resting on her belly. She was nearly ready to give birth. Her daughter shifted with slow, steady movements that matched the peaceful rhythm of her mother's breathing. The air smelled like pine and warm soil. A faint breeze carried the scent of dew across the yard. It reminded Olivia of mornings long before the fear, long before the shouting, long before she ever knew what it meant to be controlled. This was her father's home, and now it was hers. She wrapped her cardigan around her shoulders and looked out across the yard. The wooden fence Henry built so many years ago still stood firm. The small garden he once tended had begun to sprout again after she watered it each evening. The house no longer felt haunted by loss. It felt like a place waiting to heal with her. Her due date arrived quietly. No chaos, no fear, no footsteps pounding on the porch. When the contractions began, she did not panic. She called the nurse from the safe house. She called Martha. She called Ramirez. The three people who had become the unexpected pillars of her survival rushed to meet her at the small community hospital downtown. The delivery was long, but gentle. The doctors spoke softly. The nurses encouraged her with warm voices and calm smiles. When she finally felt the weight of her daughter placed on her chest, Olivia broke into tears instantly. They were not the tears of fear she had shed so many times before. These were tears filled with relief, love, and a gratitude so deep she could barely breathe. Her daughter let out a soft cry that turned into a tiny whimper. Olivia touched her cheek and whispered, "You are here. You made it. We made it." She named her Henria, a name rooted in strength, a name born from protection, a name given so her daughter would always carry the memory of the man who saved them both long before her birth. Henria slept most of the first night, curled on Olivia's chest with her small breaths warming her mother's skin. Olivia hardly slept at all. She watched her daughter's tiny hands twitch and her eyelids flutter. She felt the rise and fall of her daughter's chest, the miracle of it, the safety of it, the beginning of everything that came next. After being discharged, Olivia returned to Henry's house with her newborn daughter nestled in her arms. The living room had been tidied. The kitchen counter held flowers from neighbors she had not spoken to in years. The refrigerator was stocked because the safe house nurses had arranged food deliveries. It was the first time Olivia realized how many people had quietly cared for her without asking for anything in return. A few days later, Martha and Agent Ramirez stopped by. Ramirez held a small pink blanket wrapped in soft ribbon. Martha brought a basket filled with baby clothing and handwritten recipes for gentle postpartum meals. When they walked onto the porch and saw Olivia rocking Henria in a wooden chair, they both paused. "She looks peaceful," Ramirez said quietly. Olivia smiled. "She is." Martha sat beside her. "You did something extraordinary," she said. "You walked away from a life built on fear and built a new one on hope. Your father would be indescribably proud." Olivia looked down at her daughter. "He saved us," she whispered. "If he had not left that box, I do not know what would have happened." Martha touched her hand gently. "He did what every parent hopes they would have the strength to do. He protected you even when he knew he might not live long enough to watch you receive that protection." Olivia swallowed hard. She felt tears forming, but they were soft tears, full of warmth instead of sorrow. "I wish he could meet her," she said. "I wish he could see us like this." "No," Ramirez nodded. "In every way that matters, he has." They stayed for an hour. Ramirez held Henria for a moment, the baby opening her eyes just long enough to study his face before drifting back to sleep. Martha walked through the house and checked on the nursery Olivia had slowly assembled. When they finally left, the house felt even warmer than before, filled with the memory of their kindness. That evening, As the sun dipped behind the trees, Olivia put Henria in a soft sling across her chest and stepped outside. The porch boards creaked under her feet the same way they had under Henry's for decades. She walked to the edge of the porch and looked out over the yard where she once played as a little girl. The sky was painted in shades of peach and light gold, the kind of sky that hinted at new beginnings. She sat in the rocking chair, cradling her daughter close. The chair groaned gently as she moved. The warm breeze brushed against her skin. Fireflies began to appear in soft, glowing flickers. She reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out Henry's last letter. She had read it a dozen times, but each time felt different. Each time felt like he was speaking directly to her. She opened it now, letting her eyes trace the familiar words. My Olivia, if you are reading this, you have already walked through the hardest part. I want you to know that everything I have done was to give you and your child a life of peace, a life free from fear. Do not let your past define you. Do not let another person's darkness keep you from the sunrise you deserve. Start again, love again, breathe again. You are stronger than you know, and I will always be with you. Olivia closed the letter and held it against her heart. She looked down at Henria sleeping peacefully against her chest. A tear rolled down her cheek, not out of sadness but out of the overwhelming sense of safety she finally felt. She leaned down and kissed the top of her daughter's head. We start over, she whispered. You and me. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair. The rocking chair swayed gently. The first star appeared in the sky. And as Olivia held her daughter in the soft glow of the settling dusk, she knew the truth with complete certainty. The nightmare had ended. The future belonged to them now. A new dawn had finally come.